And let's make this big. All right. It's probably a train. My phone gives me alerts when the sound transit is delayed or something. All right, so I am going to go online. And I guess I'll zoom this just for the search. Well, can you guys see the search if I just type it in here? Because basically what I want is MySQL and Workbench. In fact, if we just go for Workbench, it'll probably give us both. I'm going to go to MySQL Workbench. But I want to make sure I'm downloading it with MySQL. I'm going to click download now. I'll go back. I just want to make sure I'm getting... I think I want this, the MySQL installer. You guys with me? You want me to go back? So what I did, rather than an actual link, is I just I typed in MySQL Workbench. So, and then I went to the first, I just clicked the first one. Yeah. And then it has a download now button. So down here, I'm pretty sure that what we want is the installer. And we want it with everything, all the MySQL products in one thing. Although there are some products we'll have to refuse. But I'm just going to click on that. So you need me to go back over that again, or you got it? So I searched for MySQL Workbench, chose the very top of the list, did download now, and I'm going to click on this, which will take me to the installer. And we want, I think it'll have both. It's a 32-bit installer. I'm trying to remember which I did. I don't think it matters. Well, so the trick is this installer downloads everything before it installs. This one will pull the stuff from the web. So I don't know. I'm going to try the top one. It's been a quarter since I did this. I'm not going to log in. I'm just going to say, no thanks, start my download. I did. I may regret that, but we'll see. And then I'm going to save it. And when it's done saving, I'll run it. I really think the difference that the bigger one downloads all the files. So you're loading it from your disk, and the other one runs it from the web, and you're updating that. All right. Run. And I'm going to say yes. And yes. And if you have problems, this is not a hard install though. It's really not too bad. So like everything here, let me zoom, I guess, so you can see things better. Like all installers, if you don't accept the license, It's all over at that point. If you want to read the agreement, you can. We're going to do the developer default. There's going to be a few things in here that we won't, or we could do custom. I've always done the default. You guys want to try custom, or just go with the default? Well, let's go with the default. The thing is, these are products we can't install. Yeah. So anyway, these are things we can't install. Well, why I was thinking custom is we could have just told it not to install those things. Anyway, and that's fine. There's nothing there that we really need. We are not going to interact with Excel, Visual Studio, or Python. Though if you did it at home and you wanted to, you could. I'm going to do next. And this is the stuff it will install. Mostly what we want is MySQL Server and the Workbench. A lot of this other stuff probably don't need, but we'll do it. And then I'm just going to execute. Yeah, I don't care about the router, so the utilities. It says errors, but it'll go through and it may complete these things anyway. So it takes a while. That's not good.
It keeps telling me it's failing on Workbench and MySQL Server.
So if it fails again, let's go back and do the bigger one. I've never had it fail before, but it is.
It's failed 3 times.
So let's go back.
Did you cancel?
I did, I canceled it.
I had success on my personal.
Yeah, I don't know why I'm not getting success. And every time I've done it before, I got success. So let's do the bigger one. Did you guys do the other one? I am for my machine here. It'll take a little longer. Let's hope it works this time. Okay, so
I don't have MySQL Server on here. I just have it on Fire.
yeah, I'm not sure why. So standalone development machine. This looks better, but does it give you anything if you just go? Yeah, add them. Add the server. And add, so the way you add them, click the little arrow. Actually, open the plus thing. And then that, yeah, and then you want the 64 bit. Yeah, and then move that over. And then under applications, find Workbench. And then add that over. I think that's good. Go ahead and try it, if it works. This downloaded perfectly fine. Is that after doing it again? Usually. Yeah. I'm going to, so one of the things, if you get to this point where you're setting the root password, it is really crucial that you set it as something you will remember. Recovering from a lost password is a nightmare. So you know what I'm going to say, don't do this in real life production, but I'm just going to, my password is going to be password. Even with no special characters.
Standalone MySQL.
Yes. So yeah, do standalone.
Steve, since I'm on the virtual
You shouldn't need to do that.
I mean,
No, you shouldn't. But I think you still use the see this toolbar down there? Yeah, that's not the extension. Hit the little box. Now it's
okay, so I made a root password,
right.
and then do I add a user?
I mean, we're just going to go as root. If you want to add a user, you could. What does it have to do to add a user?
I was thinking of like just to add one.
You could, yeah, if you can add your account. I think you'd have to do it like a user. Yeah. Go ahead and cancel the small version of the bigger version.
You want to enable X protocol? Do I enable X protocol?
No, just go. And then execute that. So, this isn't too complicated. But also, so just give you stand in. new password. He said my password is just going to be the password. No, just all right, so we're there. And we'll do finish. Now, did I get... So I'm going to click on add because I don't think I ever got Workbench. I just don't think I ever got Workbench. Don't need those. I was just wondering what those were. Not going to download the documentation. So did you get Workbench? Okay. You had this book for no. Just when it's done executing, if you were doing like me, you might have to go to add when it goes back to that one screen. We just want to make sure we get the Workbench.
I would ask him.
So if you don't have Workbench, okay, so you can figure out this. This was supposed to go easier than the SQL Server.
Yeah, there's like these like random steps that you go into. You're like, whoa, what? Oh, I was done. What basic units you just do the same one that you were?
Yeah.
Python one. I think he's going to do so fast.
Yeah, so you want to have go into I think you got it out. So yeah, do max. And then give it a password. No, just pass that by. So I've never been sure what this means. All right, so I'll make sure everybody's sort of up before I do this. You got MySQL Workbench. You got MySQL Workbench. I would just say delay or no. I don't think it matters stuff. That's the command line. You can close it if you want, or you can use it if you want. Looks like most people. Then make sure it's a password. And we're just going with root user. You should probably have used it. So we're almost ready. How are you doing? Are you almost installed there? Yeah. You have, yeah. So Workbench is a neat program, actually, particularly since it's open source and free. It's kind of like the Management Studio, but a little bit different. Okay, so this is, notice down here there's a connection. Root localhost 3306, so that's the port they give you. You can have, obviously, because we do, you can have SQL Server, MySQL, and the same thing. So when I click that, it's asking me for my password. And as I said, mine is just password. Again, in real life, you would want a couple of things in real life. Don't log in as root unless you have to. And don't have a password of password. You can, if you want, click this little box that says save password in a vault and never have to enter your password again, which is great on your own machine, but again, not necessarily the best security. Should I click it? Guess I won't. So I'm going to just do a little bit of tour, and then, as I said, let you guys finish up on other stuff. This is the kind of the environment. They do give you, actually, I didn't get the sample data. Sometimes you can get a sample database here. I don't have it, it doesn't look like. So it only has the system database. I might add something later, but this is basically where your database would be here, and they call them schemas. There's other things for dashboard, like startup shutdown, performance reports, connections, you know, all of these export and import. All of those things are here. There is, I'm going to move this way over because it's not very useful. There's a SQL command thing here where you can enter your SQL. So, but before we ever do any of this, we're going to go to models. And I'm going to make a new model, and I'm going to show you a little bit about this, and if you want, you can play with it. Wednesday, we'll make the groups for Python Club, and we'll talk about what that database would look like, and then you can start building it. But this is my DB. If I double-click that, it gives me some properties, and like I can change the name of the database. What do I want to name the database? Test again. So it changes it to test. And if I want, notice up here there's add a diagram. I can click on that, double click it, I guess, and it gives me a diagram. And I can do things like I can drag a table up on here. Drag a table, click. If I double click it, it gets me down again to the properties. So I could say test table, and I could give it a column name. What it does is ID test table, and it gives it an int and it makes it a primary key by default. These things, if you go across it, if you hover, it gives you what they are. Primary key, not null. If you want to make it unique, which you don't have to for a primary key. Binary, unsigned data type, fills up the columns with zeros if it's numeric. Auto increment if you want to do that. And a generated column, which would require you to write an equation. So I'm going to do test table. Well, actually, let's just do test date. And you have all the same kinds of data types, but you might notice that some of them have different names. I'm just going to do date. I'm going to make it not null. And I will do, what do I want to name this one? We'll just call it test description. Can't type. And then again, you can do, they don't have the nvarchar. It's just the varchar. That being said, their varchar is Unicode. You know, so they don't differentiate between ASCII and Unicode. It's just all Unicode. So if we go up here, I can extend that down, right? And you can see the table. Now, one of the reasons why I like this better, and I'm letting you guys do it instead of doing Visio, is that this does not create the database until you tell it to. So you can play with this and you can change your relationships and you can do all your designing here, and you're not actually creating the database until you say. So let's do, I'm just going to do a table test detail. I'm just going to drag. You have to click and then drag. All right. So this one I'll double click it, and I'll call it test detail. And I'm going to give it a test ID test detail, I guess. And I'll make it a primary key. I'm not going to put the foreign key in here because this will actually put them in there for you, and I'll show you. I have no idea what to write in here for the other than test detail. Whatever. Let's make that a decimal. And I think when it has parentheses like this, it's kind of like the other. I'm going to do 42. Okay.
You didn't make the ID test detail primary key.
Okay, so Why is it so little? Not sure why that was so little, but anyway. So in the toolbars here, and I might need to, my mouse isn't working very good. See these things, you can put this down for, whoops, that's not what I wanted. I just want to close this for a moment. That's not working. I don't want to close it though, necessarily. Let's just drag it down if I can. No, it's not going to drag down. I want to get to the, well, if I grab this key, trying to grab the key. Why is it not letting me do that? I may need the relationships after all, but I'm having trouble getting to them because of my zoom. Oh, here. No, that only does that. It doesn't scroll this.
Take out the, yeah, close that table.
The what?
Yeah, close that out.
Yeah, I was trying not to close it out, but I guess if I double click, it'll come back.
Yeah.
So there's some tools here. You want, notice how some have dashes and some don't have dashes? Weirdly, you want the dashed one. And I'm going to click from, you want to go from foreign key. I'm going to click here. No, that didn't work. I've done this many times, but I messed up now. Delete. All right. So I want this.
Oh, wow.
I want to click here and then click there.
Yeah, how'd you do that?
All right, let me clear it again. And it also creates the foreign key.
Oh, let's see. Never mind.
All right. Well, I'll do it again. Anyway, so if I delete this relationship, it also deletes the field. Now, one of the things that can get you into a lot of trouble here is that it puts the foreign key in there. And it gives it its own name, right? You could change the name of that if you want. If I take the dashed line, click here and then click here, then what it does is it says test table ID, test table int, right? It creates a foreign key. It's the ID test table, but it gives the table name underscore and then that field name as the foreign key. It also does mark it as a foreign key. It puts this little red diamond.
Where'd you click to get the foreign key in both of them?
What?
I think I did it wrong. Where'd you click to get the foreign key in both of them?
There's only one foreign key.
Oh, okay.
This
Oh,
is
mine. Oh, I see. Mine was backwards.
right. One of the things that is also you have to be. So I'm going to delete it again. We'll be doing this more. So one of the things that's counterintuitive because it's different than SQL Server is you go from foreign key to primary key. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to click here and then click here. Notice that the crow's foot is on this side, right? So you click on the foreign key side first and then the, it's a little counterintuitive. You do not want, I'm going to put this back in a moment, but I'm also going to delete it again. You do not want the solid ones. So if I do that, notice it makes this as another part of the primary key. And you don't want that because you end up with this massive key that's just insane. It's called identifying versus non-identifying. We've never talked about that because it's not very important, but in MySQL they make a big deal about it. identifying means that the foreign key is part of the primary key. Where this usually happens is like in linking tables, right? Where you have the two, where I was making a composite key with the two foreign keys. That would be a identifying thing. So if I needed, I'm just going to make another table. If I needed a linking table, so I'm just going to call, I'll just double click this one. Come on, up, up, up. So I'll call this one a linking table. You shouldn't probably name it. They should have some name other than linking table. I'm not going to put any fields in this though, but I am going to put the identifying, and I'll click here and then here. It didn't go. As you can see, this is not without its frustrations also. All right, identifying. I wonder, so should just go. It's not doing it
Can you
though.
make it bigger so there's white again?
Okay, so let's try it again. That's the wrong way. That's one reason. That's not right though. Why is that not working? I've done them before. There it goes.
So if we have like a many-to-many relationship,
Then you could do this, but in general, what you want is, the dashed one. A dashed one is not identifying. That means that the foreign key is not part of the primary key. Technically, that's correct, as I said, but it's oh, where did I go now? I'm over here. Part of it's my zooming.
So in this instance, what decision or what distinction do we have to make logically to go from?
So this is pretty rare, right?
Okay.
Most of the time, you're going to want the dashed one. Because most of the time, you just want a primary key, foreign key relationship. So let's do one more table. This has no logic as a structure. So I don't know what I want to call this table. Table details. Which I'm only showing relationships. And again, we'll play with this. I'll give it an ID. And I think that's all I'm going to give it. So let's get rid of that. So most of the time, you're going to want a dashed one. And we'll like click here and in there. And the foreign key, just a plain foreign key, is just this red triangle. These mean that they're part of the primary key. It's sort of their primary key and foreign key. And then a plain primary key is just yellow. The thing is that it's actually a pretty neat designer. It's still got its frustrations, right? And what we're going to do, we'll build our database in here and we can fix things and change things and do things. And then when you're done, but don't do this until you're done, you can go to database and there's a thing called forward engineer. And you can basically just go through this wizard. Most of this you can just do the defaults. And it wants my password. And then I will do next, and it creates the SQL for the database that you have, all right? And then you do next, and it will write it. So I will close this. And now if I go back to the server, and one way you can get there is just, well, actually this right here. It isn't showing it, but if I refresh, there will be test. And if I go down into test, you can see the tables, and all the tables are there. So it actually created the database from that model. But it doesn't do it until you tell it to. Whereas in SQL Server, it does it instantly, right? Yeah, don't do this until you're done. Couple of reasons. If you do it before you're done and you make changes, it might be better just to delete this test database here and run it again, because it doesn't replace it, it adds to it. It can make a real mess. That's one thing I have against it. It doesn't just replace it when you run the model again.
So if you need to add a table later,
So there's things that you could do. So for any of these tables, there's a design thing, right? So you can go modify the table in design. Is that the whole thing? I don't want to close the whole thing. I just want to close the. You can also do the create table here. You actually have to want to say use test create table, whatever. Sounds like a good name for one. And you know, you can add stuff to it if you want. So what do I want to name? Whatever ID. Actually, the way they do it, their naming convention is ID whatever. Type. I forget auto number. I forget the keyword for I'll just do it as an int, but there's a keyword to make it count. It's something like auto number, but not quite. Auto, I don't know if it's auto increment. No, because that's not blue either. I'll look it up. But I'll just say primary key. No. So there's my table. And I execute that. If all is good, it gives me green check marks down here. And if I refresh here, I have a whatever table. Yeah. So you can modify them here, or if you're doing major modifications and you're redoing the model, you might want to just drop the test and do it again. But if you might end up, if you run it twice, you might end up with two tables with the same name and things like that.
So if you, let's say you put some data inside this.
If you rerun it, you would lose it. Yeah. So, and notice the little icons here. The first one is information. The second one is design. And the third one is a form a lot like SQL Server. So if I just click on that, it'll give me a place to enter data. One thing, and we'll talk about this more when we start getting closer to actually finishing the Python or doing the Python. This is just sort of an overview. When you put in data, so I think the only one I could probably, because of my relationships, I think I need to go to test table first. So that should be an auto number. So test date, I forget the thing for, oh, no. Anytime, future. Okay, so I'm just going to put 2018, oops, not in there. 2018-2-5, and then for the description, something or other. All right, you can click down there, and if it's happy, it'll do that. But to save it, you actually have to click apply. It creates an insert statement, and you can always copy these insert statements and stuff if you want to get it does the insert statement. If I apply it, it says it was successful. So if I were to, I do have to finish. Notice it, then it gives it an auto number. The 218 shouldn't have been up there. All right, and if I do select from this, run that again, well, it just has the data that I entered. But if you don't apply it, it goes away. I've had people put in all the data in all their tables and forget to apply them. And then they come back and it's all gone. Because if you don't apply it, it's not there. Applying can give you some problems. You won't generally see your errors until you apply. Right, once you apply, then you might have some errors. So this is the environment. So the main difference is it's a different product. The relational model, the relational ideas are exactly the same. Does that make sense? This is a product. It was open source. It's still technically open source, but Oracle owns it. MariaDB looks a lot like this. Has anybody played with it? It's the people that made MySQL were a little upset that Oracle got possession of it. So they made a new one. But I find this one easier to use. The MariaDB has some quirks that I had trouble with, so I went with the MySQL for this. So I'm going to let you guys finish up with the stuff from SQL Server. If you want to play with MySQL, you're welcome to. I will on Wednesday, we'll make the groups, the Python groups, right? And we'll start talking about that designer. You are actually slightly ahead of the afternoon class, which is, they were way ahead of you for a while because of the Mondays you guys missed. So, and they're going to miss Thursday. You guys know that Thursday's not a school day? Okay. It is for me, just not for you guys. I don't know, does anybody know, are the facilities open?
I saw an email that said they were.
Yeah, the tutoring lab is open.
The tutoring lab is open and the library and things like that? Okay. So you can come and do that. Yeah. Which I had usually ignored, but was told that I cannot ignore it this time. Yeah. Yeah, we're going to build the next one in MySQL, and don't worry about it being due on Wednesday. I'll give you a little more time than that. But Wednesday, we'll get the groups together and get the process started. They can be the same groups, or you can vary them however you want. No, so this one's a different database. This one is called Python Club, and it's basically tracking a club with its members and meetings and things like that. So it's a different database. Give you another experience with building a relational model. If you were interested, if you go into the modules, there's a PDF for Python Club, and there's all. And if you want to get a head start, I just wanted to make sure everyone had time to finish up the SQL stuff from last time. How many need to work on that? If only one or two? No, quite a few do. Okay, we'll let it be. I will kill the video now. I'm going to try to find some software to edit these videos just to cut the dead spots out. I saw online there was a few options for doing it. I don't know why YouTube took away the ability to edit